Okay. Um, all right. So welcome to session 3 of the practical introduction to analytics. So last time around, we were talking about the life cycle, um, the roles that are involved in and which stages or layers they are responsible of, as well as the tech and tools. In this session, we will be going through a particular example um, where we would go through each of the stage, and I'm going to give you like an actual example that I did. So I'm going to first tell you what the tech stack that I'm using for this example. Um, and then um, we're gonna go through each one of them and how I created the final output, which is a dashboard. All right, so this is our hypothetical example. All right, so suppose, uh, so let's say I am a data analyst at an esports company, and I work for a team for this particular game, MLBB or Mobile Legends, right? If you're familiar with the game. So here's the thing: if um, as a data analyst, you really have to be, um, how to say it, like flexible, right? So in this particular example, if you are hired at an esports company and you don't have like any experience with gaming, you really have to have that uh, ability to learn and adapt to how the company works, what's the how the company makes money, how esports work, right? So you have to adapt to the environment, right? So even if you're not familiar with things, you have to learn their ways. Okay, so that's something that you need to have as a data analyst. Um, and anyway, I think it will be very hard for you to get hired uh, if you don't know anything about a certain business or a certain product, right? But yeah, so this is our hypothetical example. So this is the company, and uh, let's say they want to. Um, so let's say they're requesting for a dashboard, a performance dashboard, right? So the person or the team or like a group of persons um, who requests dashboards or reports from the data team or to the data analyst, these will be your stakeholders, right? You need to deliver something for them. So uh, what happens first is, of course, let me zoom in a bit. You will gather information. So this is more of the discovery phase of any uh, analytics project. So you have to gather information like what do they want to see. If they are requesting for a performance dashboard, like you have to get the specifics of what they actually want to see. Like, do they want the number of games played, the win loss record, the win rate, or whatever, right? So let's say you gather those information. Um, so that's the first step, right? So stakeholder management, right? So you need to gather information and then uh, estimate time needed for you to deliver this. Um, you know what? Actually, before estimating the time needed, um, you need to uh, discuss internally with the data team. Why? Because you see, you now have the list of information that they want to see. But first, you need to huddle with the data team because you're not even sure if you have the data, right? So you will talk with your data engineers. You can actually start this one on your own. Like you can go to your data warehouse and see whatever data is already there. Um, if everything's complete, then you're good. Like you can proceed to the next step. But if this is totally new, like this is the first time you're building this type of dashboard, and this is the first time your company will be collecting this type of information, then you will have to team up with data engineers, because the data engineers, they are responsible for pulling data from external sources into your data warehouse, so you'll have something to work with. Okay, so this is also the part where you would know if the data that they are requesting, or the dashboard that they are requesting, the information that they want to see is feasible. um, because if the data engineer says, you know what, we can't really report the win rate, just as an example, we can't report the win rate because we don't have any information about the win rate. So you need to go back to your stakeholders and tell them what's available and what's not. So that's why you need to discuss this one internally. Now, once you have, so let's say you understand exactly what they want, so that's step A, everything that they are asking. And assuming that you already have all the data in your data warehouse, now you have the data. The next thing that you would want to do is to uh, do a quick and dirty exploration. So just explore the data. Um, just a very quick one, so that uh, you can estimate the time needed for you to deliver the requested project. Okay, so you need to go back to your stakeholders and tell them that I now have the data and everything is possible. Whatever you requested is possible. It will take me like a week, for instance, to finalize everything. Okay, so yeah, this is our hypothetical example. Um, okay, so let's take a few steps back and let's actually see how all these things work together using actual tools. Okay, so if you're joining a data team, um, I've already mentioned data warehouse, right? So it's a database where uh, all of the data will be stored uh, from the ingestion, from the to the transformation and analysis. Everything will happen in the data warehouse. Um, and I've also mentioned what else? A dashboard, right? So yeah, we'll go through that, and a repository. So when you join a data team, uh, they will have a repository. So how does a repository look like? If you are not familiar, it's something like this. It's a code base, so it's where every code goes. Um, so why do they have a code base? Because this is where they keep. For you as a data analyst, you will be mostly concerned of the SQL queries. Uh, yeah, that's your concern. And this is where you would find the SQL queries that power your dashboards, that power your reports. Um, so in other words, if you want to create a dashboard, then you have to write your SQL queries into this repository so that it will be created in the data warehouse, so that your dashboard has something to use. Okay, so now let's go back here. Okay, so gather information. Let's say you already have that one. B is also there. Now this is where we can I can actually demo here. So All right, so this is an example of a data warehouse, and this is an actual data warehouse. Um, BigQuery is one of the most uh, popular data warehouses uh, out there. So the other popular options would be Snowflake and Databricks, right? Those are the most common ones. So yeah, as I mentioned, this is just a database, right, for analytics. And in step B, where the data engineers already ingested the data from external sources into your data warehouse, so you have to ask your engineers if you don't know, right, where the data is. You have to ask your engineers where in the data warehouse they store the data, and what are the names of the tables that you need to be familiar that you need to familiarize yourself. So in this example, the data landed in raw MLBB. So these are all the data sets that the engineers had ingested. So this is how you do a quick and dirty analysis, right? So you open the table that they ingested, um, and you preview them. Uh, yeah, in case you're using some other warehouses, I think I think most of them have a like a preview option, like you can already see what's in there and what's not. But in case your data warehouse doesn't have that feature, then you will have to start using uh, SQL. So yeah, if you're just exploring, you only need a few rows to begin with. So yeah, 10 rows would be enough for you to see like what's in there and what you can get. So you have an idea of how to build the report from these tables. So yeah, quick and dirty, you just need to go all through this one, and so that you know which ones are relevant for you. Um, so I've already looked into the data, and remember the hypothetical example where they would want to see the win rate, the MVP rate, the number of games played, and most of those will be coming from match details. So let's see what's inside match details. So yeah, this is the payload, right? And this is where most of the information are. But as you can see, this is quite difficult to understand. So this is another thing that you need to discuss with the engineers, because when they ingest data from other sources, they usually do that via API or some sort of connectors, right? But usually the source where the data is coming from, there should be a some form of documentation that tells you what these numbers mean and what these fields mean. Like what does HID mean? What's the meaning of RID? And what are all these numbers? So there are documentations available that will tell you how to read this information, right? So you know how to parse through this information. Okay, so yeah, all of as I mentioned, everything that I need in this hypothetical example are in the payload column of match details. So yeah, so this is where the transformation step happens. So let's assume that you don't have an analytics engineer in your team, and so the data modeling would be done by the data analyst. So what you would do next is, now let's go back to the repository to see my example. All right, so before we go here, we continue. I'd like to quickly discuss the major layers in any DBT project, and you can you can see this one, you can learn this one, uh, or you can read this one directly from the DBT website. Okay, but yeah, the major layers in a data warehouse that's using DBT are staging, intermediate, and marks. So staging is the this is a one-to-one relationship with the raw data. By one-to-one relationship, meaning it's the same number of rows as the original data set or the raw data set. So what happens is in the staging layer is usually, so let's see what an example will be for the match details. It's mostly formatting. So as you can see earlier, the payload, everything that you want is uh, is stored in a single column. In a staging layer, you would want this one a lot cleaner than this. So anything that you need from this payload must be separated into their own columns. So the SQL query for that is this. So right, so as you can see, this is where the separation of those columns will be. So how do I know that the F field in the payload means team flag, that the HID is the hero ID? How do I know all this? It's documented in the data source, in the um the data source where the engineers got this data from. Okay, so if your engineers are pulling data, let's say from a marketing or from a social media um, how do you call it, social media platform, let's say you are run marketing campaigns there and you pull the data, usually, as I've said, those websites will tell you exactly how to read their data, and that's how I got all this. Okay, so yeah, there's no expansion or increase of the number of rows in a staging layer. It's mostly just organizing things. So as I mentioned, it separated the data into different columns for this example. Okay, so yeah, this is what a uh, a DBT file would look like. It's obviously just a SQL query using CTE. And there are some things that may look weird at first, like this one. This is called a DBT macro. Um, but yeah, you would learn this one. You would learn that one from their website. But for now, what you need to understand is that this is just SQL query, really. So yeah, as you can imagine, this needs to be executed against the warehouse. Okay, so now let's look for this model in the warehouse, or this table in the warehouse, that's called STG MLBB match details. Here you go. Okay, so let's take a look at this one, how it looks like. All right, so yeah, nice and tidy. So remember how bad it looked like in the raw data. So now that it's transformed, it's a lot cleaner, right? So you can see the hero name, the number of kills in that game, deaths and assists, and all those metrics that you can see. Yeah, it's now expanded nice and clean in the staging layer. Okay, so now that it's expanded, what's next for you to do is to create the actual models. So that's not going to be the table that will be used for the dashboard, because you still have to do a lot of transformations to this. So intermediate layer, as the name as the name suggests, right? Intermediate. So this is the layer where um, it's right in the middle. Okay, so staging is a one-to-one relationship with the source, and minor transformations and cleaning will be there. Intermediate is is the layer where you would want reusable models. So if you you think that a certain transformation will be reused by a lot of different models, then it makes sense that you write that logic into the intermediate layer so that all the downstream use cases will just reference it, will just read from it. Okay, so that's the intermediate layer. But for this example, I don't think we'll be using that. Maybe we will be using that one, but it's not really important in this example. So what's more important is the marks layer, because this is where you would put the facts and dimension tables. So again, I'm not going to go deep on what's a fact model and what's a dimension model, but you can imagine this as a fact model is where the metrics are. So metrics are anything that you can measure, you can count. Okay, and dimension, this contains um, any information that you can use to, let's say, filter the metrics, or you can break down the metrics into. Okay, an example of a dimension would be date. So date is a dimension because you can use that one uh, to break down a certain metric. So if you're counting the number of games as a metric, you can break down the number of games into different days. Okay, so the metric in that example is the number of games, and the dimension is the date. Okay, so let's take a look at what's inside fact match details. So it's reading from the staging model that um, we just saw earlier. By the way, who writes this? It's the person who does the transformation. That's usually the data analyst or the analytics engineer. Okay. So yeah, we did use that int layer from earlier, and then the final selection in this SQL query is just the match details and a couple of exemptions. So all of these are removed, and this is the column from the int layer. But again, it's not really that important in this example. Okay, so now how does fact match details look like if this is executed in the warehouse? So let's see. It should be in marks. Okay, so this is how it looks like. So it kind of look like the staging models, the staging model, but I would say it has more information. In particular, this one, the patch. So that's the one coming from the int layer, and a couple of additional columns like this one is me, because each row here, because each game in this mobile game uh, is composed of 10 players, so 5 each side. um, and the is me column will tell you which row um, pertains to you as the player. In this example, this is my gaming data. So this layer, sorry, this row says that, it says true. That means this is my data in this game, and I'm on team one, uh, and team two is the opposing team. Okay, and I know what match we played against by using the match ID. All right, so that's how you would read this information. Again, if you're not familiar with gaming data, or if you're not really familiar with the data of your company, this is what I've been telling you at the beginning of the this recording. You need to be flexible enough. Okay, try to learn this one. Ask people what this data is about. Try to understand how this data is generated, how it relates to other tables in the data warehouse. Try to understand how these things work. Okay, because that's where um, a lot of the insights will be coming from. It's so hard to create dashboards to answer business questions if you, you don't know, you don't understand what the data says. Okay, so yeah, you have to have that ability. Anyway, so we now have the fact match details. Okay, before we proceed, um, you may be wondering, does that mean that as soon as I write the SQL into this file, into this repository, will it automatically appear in my data warehouse? So the answer is not automatically for most data warehouses. There's this thing that we call orchestration. So orchestration is how frequent your data warehouse um uh, orchestration refers to how the data engineers wire together all of the models in your data warehouse. So from ingestion to transformation to reporting, right? So there's a portion in the orchestration layer uh, where a job runs that will refresh the entire uh, data warehouse. So if you remember, fact match details is reading from uh, this model or this table, and it's reading from this table. And remember also that the staging model is reading directly from the source, uh, from the raw data. Okay, so there's a chain reaction, right? So one is dependent on the other, and this one is also dependent on the table before it. So or when that orchestration job runs, it will run everything in the data warehouse. Okay, not everything. Okay, um, it depends really on how your engineers set it up. But if it's a really small data warehouse, then I think it's fine to run everything. So in this example, it's a very small warehouse, so the setup would be as easy as run everything every, let's say, 4 hours. So when that job runs, it refreshes this model. And then after it recreates this model, it updates this model, all of its downstream will also be updated. So that's why you need DBT for these types of jobs, because DBT will tell exactly which models are reading from which models, so that the orchestration job knows what to run and what to run after that. So yeah, so it's not going to appear automatically once it's merged in your repository. If in that example, if they run the refresh job every 4 hours, then you will have to wait for the next scheduled run to see this one appearing on your warehouse. But you need, again, you need to be close to the engineers. You need uh, to work closely with them, because there are for sure there are ways where you can trigger the refresh manually. You don't have to wait for the entire 4 hours to pass. For sure they will set something up where you can override the schedule. So yeah, you need to ask your engineers, okay, how can I just merged this one and I need to work on this right now, and I can't wait for the next 4 hours. How can I run this one manually so that I can see it in the warehouse? Okay, so yeah, that's how you do it. Okay, okay, so let's assume that, yeah, we already seen this one, right? So assuming that the orchestration job had run and this is the result. So now we can build the requested dashboard from this data. Okay, so how does it look like? So yeah, this is the example, and I'm gonna switch to season 39 because I have more data. Yeah, apparently the data source where I got this from limits the data to just 100 games per season. So sorry, 1,000 games. So yeah, it's capped at 1,000. Okay, so this is now the dashboard that I created. So this is exactly what they wanted. So they want to see the number of games, the win rate, how yeah, how often the player won, uh, how often they won the MVP award, um, in during wins or on winning games, how many times uh, do they win the MVP award, and how many times do they get that MVP award when they lose? Okay. And yeah, and these are all sorts of visualizations that was requested to you. So now let's take a look how this was created. So I'm using Looker or Data Studio. Um, my data warehouse is BigQuery. The repository is hosted in GitHub, and finally um, the the visualization tool or the BI tool is Data Studio. And yes, I'm using DBT, right? I think I mentioned a couple of times. Yeah, this is using DBT. Okay, so yeah, Power BI would look different like than this. Tableau would also look different, but they all work the same in the sense that they have the ability to show or to that will allow you to create charts like this uh, by reading from a certain table, right? There are ways how to connect your tool to your data warehouse. Okay, it will look different, of course, with those other BI tool. So yeah, you just need to learn how to connect to the data warehouse and how to set things up, like how to create a bar chart, how to create scorecards like this, or KPI charts. Sorry, KPI cards like that. Um, Basic tables and formatting like this. So yeah. So as you can see, the data source that this chart is using, actually, almost all of these, I think all of these are actually reading from uh, match details, the one that we were just looking at the warehouse, right? It's exactly this. Okay. So yeah, just load the data source and you can go wild here. You can create whatever you need to create. So yeah, this is an actual example. And by the way, this is an actual stack too. Like companies actually use this stack. Like they have their warehouse in BigQuery, they use DBT, they have their repository in GitHub, and BI tool in Data Studio. This is an actual stack. Um, but again, different companies use different stack. They use different combinations of technologies depending on their setup. So some will use Power BI and their warehouse is in Azure. Maybe their repository is in GitLab or Bitbucket, not really GitHub. So yeah, it's a combination of those tools. So yeah, now that you see like an actual example how things flow from ingestion all the way to the data warehouse, um, and you also I've also mentioned like which roles, which person you need to team up with, you need to talk to if you want to get things done in your work. Um, but yeah, but the job of the data analyst does not stop by creating this one. Of course, you need to go back to your stakeholders, present this one. Um, Presenting sometimes can be in a form of a meeting where you would walk them through like what you created. So this is what you requested, and I've added these filters and then all that. And during that session, those when presenting this one, that's also a an opportunity for you to gather feedback. So for instance, because these stakeholders, by the way, they are domain experts for most cases, and they can spot when things are off right away. Especially if they stared too long at these types of data before, they can spot right away if there's something off. So, for instance, um, this win rate is like too high. Like I know in season 39, like we were losing so bad. I think there's something wrong with your data. Can you check again? So that's an example feedback. So you need to go back to your data model and see if you made a mistake. You need to analyze if there's really something wrong. If not, then that's really it. That's the number. Um, okay, so presentation can also be just a form of an email. Like you can just send them the link and hey, the dashboard you requested is ready. Um, Go check it out and tell me if there's anything that you want to correct, if there's anything that you want to add, to change, or anything. But yeah, that's the regular um, data analyst flow. Yeah, once you get a feedback, you make edits, make modifications, and once they're happy with it, consider it shipped. Okay. Um, and yes, that's an actual example. And yeah, I do hope that you got something out of this. Um, I think this will be the last session of this series. So, but yeah, I won't stop here in terms of creating content for analytics, especially for aspiring data analysts. I will create recorded tutorials soon and content, and not just like streaming like this, because obviously the quality of the video right after streaming is not really that good. But yeah, plus bear with me here. I'm just trying to give something away for free as a introduction to everyone. So yeah, that should be it, and I hope you guys learned something in this session and from the entire series.